Alright, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Bahashim, Rachakwadash. Double honor to the elder apostles and the elder bishops of Great Millstone, who rule very well, very beautifully. Double salutations to the Akim who push this gospel and truth and sincerity to the best of their ability, given to them by Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai. Peace, blessings, and salutations be unto the elect scattered abroad. May the election of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord willing, fall upon your houses. This is Brother Quanah Watt from the Arizona Great Millstone Camp. Come back at you, Lord will, with that divine lesson through the spirit and power of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai, Lord will. It is edifying, Lord will. It is straight to the point. You know, our brother had sent this article, in the chat, which is a heavy article, man, because this ultimately points out that persecution, right, is right around the corner. Right, this is on the peoplesvoice.tv. It says Australia to start imprisoning Christians who pray in public, right? And 2 Corinthians 2:11, right? We're not ignorant of Satan's devices, right? We understand why, these certain laws are being, bills and policies are being established, right? And as well as, certain, paths that these governments are starting to take, right? Ultimately, trying to ban, hate speech, or trying to ban, misinformation or disinformation, or what they call or what they consider to be misinformation or disinformation. It's ultimately to stop this truth from going out, right? Which we understand that, the prophecy of Amos, the 8th chapter and the 11th verse, right on down, right, is at hand, right? The famine of the word, which means that, hey, here soon, right, Esau is going to make it damn near impossible, if not impossible, right, to get this word, right, via, possibly shutting down the internet, right, or making the internet, right, inaccessible, right, unless you have, the charagma, right, this real ID is coming to, is being pushed heavy right now, as well as, a digital ID in order to get onto the internet is being pushed, so either way, right, we will understand that the famine of the word is coming. We just don't know exactly, right, how it's going to play out, right, but again, we are seeing it, start to come to fruition, man, on how Esau might do it, but, right along with, right, the famine of the word, right, we understand that persecution is going to happen and take place, right, where Esau, Edom, is right, he's going to come up against those who speak against his system, man, which is why Esau is going so hard, to stop this truth from going out, because it ultimately reveals, his agenda, which we, Lord will, I go into a lesson on that, a little later, Esau being revealed and the world sees it, but, that's why, again, right, he's coming down so hard because the truth is going out, and he's going to come up against those who have been spreading that truth. And here you go, right? Him ultimately starting to impose certain laws, and legislation, right, that would ultimately allow him to do so, right? As we're seeing right here, it says in a stunning move, Australia's New South Wales, or NSW, has enacted a Conversion Practices Ban Act 2024, right? It says effective April 4th, threatening Christians with up to 5 years in prison and fines of $100,000 for praying in public or counseling alphabet soup group individuals, even when such support is requested. This law directly targets believers in Sydney and beyond who hold fast to their faith, casting a dark shadow over religious freedom. So they're ultimately going to be putting people into prison, that are, from what they're saying, right, are going to be, praying in public and or trying to, because I have the actual, the act, right, pulled up, but, anybody that comes up against the alphabet soup group, right, is ultimately going to be, as they're saying, apprehended, matter of fact, I'll go ahead and pull up this, this ban, right? It says Convergence Practice Ban Act 2024, number 19. It says current version for the 5th of May, 2025. Today, it says assessed April 8th, right? The 8th of April, 2025. So, which I think is today. You know, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, today, right? It says, as we go to authorization, the second paragraph right here, it says an act to ban practices directed to changing or suppressing the sexual orientation or gender identity of individuals, including by creating offenses and a civil complaints scheme in relation to the practices or for related purposes. So you're ultimately not allowed to go up to these people, right, and tell them, you know, that, hey, they're going off, right, by, you know, being a biological female, you know, that's ultimately trying to act like, you know, a man, right? You are not allowed to tell them that. You know, and you know, we do have, you know, brothers out there in Australia, man. You know, you got the Melbourne brother out there, which I don't know, you know, if that's close to Sydney or New South Wales or anything like that. But hey, that brother's gonna be dealing with that hard, man. You know, pray Yahweh Shem Shah, protect bros out there. You know, for those that I don't know that are out there, you know, but nonetheless, right? This Esau about to come down, you know, having great wrath and force this whole thing, man. You know, so you're not allowed to tell people, right, about, you know, how the Lord Yahweh Shem Al Shai created, you know, male and female, right? Let's actually go to that real quick. It says in Genesis right here, Genesis 1 and verse 27. So the Most High created human beings in his own image. In the image of the Most High, he created them, male and female. He created them, right? Male and female. Right? The Lord created male and female, right? And that goes from animals, humans, right? Lord created male and female. So, you know, us going out there, right, and telling these people, hey, there's no such thing as 72 fucking, you know, genders or so on and so forth. This a cis male or a cis female, right? Which they're using to be, you know, to mean, you know, a regular male or regular female. No, it's just a male and a female, right? You don't have to add no letters to it, this, then the third, right? That's the bullshit, man. And see, now they're starting to sit here and say, hey, we're not allowed to say that. We're not allowed to bring those things out, you know? Because as you get further into this, right, it says part 2, interpretation, right? It says meaning of conversion practices. In this act, a conversion practice means a practice, treatment, or sustained effort that is directed to an individual on the basis of the individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, and directed to changing or suppressing the individual's sexual orientation or gender identity. So we telling them ultimately, hey, that's not according to the scriptures. Hey, you don't ultimately repent, the Lord is going to, you know, destroy you, which is thus said the Lord, man. You know, scripture say in Deuteronomy 22:5 that a man shall not put on a woman's garment, a woman shall not put on a man's garment, right? So, hey, that's according to scriptures. But see, they're making it to where we're not even allowed to say that, man. You know, which is that's wickedness, man. That's straight up wickedness. Scriptures say, woe unto him that calleth evil good and good evil. Right? You're calling what we're saying, right, which is thus saith the Lord, Yahweh Shem El Shai, you're calling that evil, saying that we're not supposed to be saying that. But yet here you go allowing these people, right, that are fucking delusional, right, and saying that, hey, you know, we got to protect that, right? We got to protect, you know, people's, you know, choice, right? That's good. No, let's fucking bug the hell out, man. You know? But see, again, this is gonna, you know, fast forward that persecution, right? And I don't want to read a little, you know, you could ultimately pause the screen and read a little bit more, but I want to drop down a little bit. It says part 3, offenses in relation to conversion practices. It says offenses of engaging in conversional practices that cause mental or physical harm, right? Meaning somebody gets offended, right? Or feels, you know, hurt, right? Which I got a video I want to play on this, you know what I mean? Which, you know, they were ultimately questioning that, right? It says a person commits an offense if the person provides or delivers a conversion practice to an individual with the intention of changing or suppressing the individual's sexual orientation or gender identity, and that causes mental or physical harm to the individual that endangers the individual's life or is substantial, right? So if they, you know, feel hurt or they feel like they want to take their life because, what if we said, right? Then, hey, guess what? Now, we're breaking the law. Now we can be put into prison, right? And these people out here are fucking soft as shit, man. You can't tell a person out here, hey, don't do that without that person feeling, suppressed or oppressed. Like, what I mean? These people are soft as shit. You can tell them, hey, you shouldn't be eating, pork because it's bad for you. It's going to cause this, that, and the third. You bring out all the facts. You bring up doctors that have talked about, how bad it's for you. And guess what they'll do? They'll sit there and whine and cry. You know what I mean? And possibly, if you're at the job, they'll probably fucking contact HR on your ass. You know what I mean? These people are fucking soft. So this is, only going to give them a more of a reason, to ultimately, call the cops on you, man. Because of their feelings, because of the way they feel, which is the reason why this fucking place is all fucked up in the first place, man. There's no fucking order, right? Everywhere, this world caters to the feelings and the lust of the flesh, and we see that where that has gotten this place, man, fucking destroyed, man, but that's okay, man. Hey, Yahweh Shem Shai gonna get rid of these evil motherfuckers, man, beginning with Esau Edom, who was ultimately allowed, for this to take place, right? And that's all I want to grab on that act. Again, I want to go back to this article, and I do want to play this video. This is fair use. I'm not, doing this for monetary gain, right? Fair use, which I'll put the disclaimer, Lord will.
Look, just further to what Kel said, I don't think it's going to be too hard of a stretch to prosecute something like this because it's completely pending on subjectiveness, which should never be in a court of law. It's testing whether harm, and when it comes to, seriousness of somebody's life, all somebody has to say is, I wanted to kill myself because somebody said, and prayed over me that I wouldn't be same-sex attracted. Boom, there you go. You've met your criteria based on the burden of proof, which they've put in this legislation. I mean, what is this? Are we China? This is regulated religion. In China, they haven't fully outlawed Christianity, but what they have done is regulate it, and that is exactly what this is. This is straight out of China. It criminalizes Christianity. It says, you know what? You're allowed to preach on this, but oh my gosh, you want to preach on Romans? You can't do that. That's harmful. Oh, you want to preach on Corinthians?
Hey, but see, Esau has done this, in the past, where you're not allowed to pray, to any power, or you're not allowed to, do anything outside of what Esau ultimately deemed you, able to do, right? You praying and worshiping a whole nother power, it will, he gonna try to put you to death, right? Which goes back to the Tower of Babel, right? That one world government, that one world religion, and then all the way to Daniel's the 6th chapter, Daniel's the 3rd chapter, right? Where Daniel was ultimately thrown into prison, right, for praying in public. He prayed 3 times a day. He was in his own home, right? But the fact that they saw him praying, hey, well, guess what? He was apprehended. Well, Hananiah, Azariah, and Mishael, right, who, the world calls, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, right? They didn't want to bow down to that image, right? So they what? They were thrown into the fire, man. And as we read in Revelations, the 13th chapter, right? Let's go ahead and grab that real quick. Revelation 13, and we'll grab that. And verse 15, it says, and he had power to give life unto the image of the beast, that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed, man. Right? So Esau is older because we're not a part of this society, right? Esau is ultimately going to try to, eliminate us from society, man. This is Esau's whole goal, right? This is the whole plan, right? Esau wants to be able to control what people do, right? What people say, what people think, This is what it's all about, man. This is why, again, I quoted earlier, 2 Corinthians 2:11, right? We're not ignorant of Satan's devices. We understand why he's doing this, man, right? He's trying to get rid of those who are against his society, get rid of those, who are pointing out his flaws, pointing out his agenda, right? So that way he can have full control over the rest of the world's, thoughts, feelings, and everything else. You know what I mean? So let's go back And that was just a, quick point I wanted to make just based off of what she was saying.
Corinthians? No, sorry, you can't do that. You know what, Israel Folau, he could probably be in prison because he just quoted Corinthians. This is the level of stupidity. The state has literally become the arbiter of truth and authority, and they are now deciding what is Christianity allowed to say and what is Christianity allowed to do. I'm sorry, but the LGBTQ community is...
Right, so there you have it, right? Well, there you have it, man. But again, this is going to lead to that persecution because, again, we're not a part of this society, and we don't speak, right, and talk about the same things as this society does. Right? We preach, thus saith Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, and again, that's going to lead to us being persecuted because we're not backing down, man. If it's wrong, it's wrong. There's a saying in the world, man, if you ain't against, something, then you're for it. And we're, hey, guess what, man? We're against it, man, because we ain't for it, right? We ain't for, Esau's turn. We ain't for the wickedness that's being, perpetrated in the earth, man. Again, you can't just sit there and say, oh, no, man, as long as they don't come over here and try to do that to me, man, I don't really care. Well, that just means, hey, you ultimately condone that shit, man. Again, if you're not against it, then you're for it, But, hey, see, the men of the Lord, the true believers in Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, hey, we're against that shit, man. And we're not just going to sit by and allow these things, right, to be, done in the earth and not say something about it, man. The prophets were set up to warn the masses of their wicked ways, right? The wickedness that's being, issued in the world, right? As the scriptures say, Jeremiah 8:28, or it's like Jeremiah 28:8, The prophets that have been before thee and before me of old have prophesied against what? Right? Against many countries, evil, war, and pestilence. Roughly paraphrasing, man. Right? And those are the things that we are, speaking on. Right? Through the spirit and power of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. And again, one of those things is what? Persecution, man. Right? Let's go ahead and round this out, man. This is St. John, the 15th chapter, the 18th verse. It says, the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. That's right. Right? Hated Yahushua because Yahushua spoke against these things, man. And again, we're coming in that same state. So this is why he's saying that, right? It says, if you were of the world would love his own. But because ye are not of the world, right? But I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. And this world hates us, man. Hell, shit, we've been into, brothers have, have gotten into, situations with family members, right? To where it's like, the family members hate you now because of what you teach and you preach, man. Hell, myself, man, I grew up with, 3 brothers, one older, two twin brothers, that are younger than me, and hey, they can't stand, me speaking about the scriptures, man. They can't stand me speaking about, Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua. Just recently they were talking about, which I don't know why they incorporated me, but they incorporated me into some, fucking chat, and, some bros chat, which, the only those that are truly my brothers, my mothers, and my sisters, my fathers, are those that do the will of Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushua, as Yahweh Shai said, man. But nonetheless, they were ultimately talking about, eating some pork and this and the third, and I post a couple scriptures, man, about Leviticus the 11th chapter, so on and so forth, and bounced out, man. I'm not with that shit, man. Scriptures talk about, they what is that? In 1 Peter, if I'm not mistaken, right here, First Peter 4 and verse 12. Beloved, thinking not strange concerning the fire trial. No, that's not the one. No, that's not the one. But that is a fire one too. Think it's strange you run out with them. Hold on, let me. Oh, I passed it. It says, 1 Peter 4 and 4, it says, wherein they think it strange that you run not with them to the same excess of riot, speaking evil of you. So you don't do the same things, right, that they do in the world. So then they start talking shit. You know what I mean? oh, you don't know what you're talking about. You don't, you know what I mean? You get that from your family members, man. But how much more people that don't know you? You know what I mean? Hey, brothers deal with that, you know, on a daily, man. You got people coming up to the camp, especially now, right? You got all these different false camps, right? False teachers and whatnot, false prophets, right? Being revealed. Now you get what? You got the sheep scattering, man. You know, yeah, more and more people coming up. More and more people are tuning into the, you know, to the live streams, you know, and majority of them are scoffers, man. You know, because they you know, for following a, you know, false group, right, which spoke against us, right, beginning with the elder apostles, the great millstone on down, they spoke against us, right, and then they, you know, again when their leader gets, you know, revealed, and they just come over and start scoffing, man, you know. So we're getting it, you know, from all angles in a sense, man, through the Spirit, you know. But again, right, we're being hated because we preach Yahweh Shai. You know, let's go back to that. St. John 15 in verse 20. It says, remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. So that persecution, right, Yahweh Shai went through it, you know. And we understand that it was wicked Israelites, right, that ultimately turned Yahweh Shai in. And you're going to have, we're coming into that time where it's going to be, you know, your family member or you know, just somebody in the world, right? It could be somebody from your job or however it may happen, right? Turn us in, right, to Esau Edom. Or it could just be Esau Edom, knowing, you know, coming in and, you know, snatching us up, whether we be at the job or whether we be, you know, doing whatever we doing, man. You know, we understand that time is coming, man, right? Real quick. You know, brothers could be out on the highways and byways and Esau come up and snatch us up, man, right? We don't know exactly how that's going to look. We just know it's coming, man, right? And bro's been, you know, ultimately going into it and touching on it the last few weeks, and it's been the sentiment, right? Even though brothers touch on prophecy, it's always, you know, been coming out. Hey, really honestly prepare your mind for what's coming, man. Because we about to enter into the bitters, man, for real, for real. We about to enter into the bitters, you know, of the scriptures, the bitterness of the scriptures, man, having to actually, you know, live through these things that we've been talking about, right? Jacob's trouble, the hour of temptation, right? The famine of the word, persecution. We're coming into those times, man, you know, so ultimately prepare your mind, man, you know, prepare your spirit, right, for what is coming. You know, it says, but all these things they will do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. That's right, man. You know, these times are coming, man. Right? Even though, you know, a lot of shit always starts overseas, you know, in different countries before it hits America. Hey, when it hits America hard, man. Right? And we saw that with the scamdemic, right? When it came to those green passes and, you know, and not being able to get into some of these stores and whatnot, people damn near killing each other over, you know, fucking toilet paper and this, that, and the third. You know, especially these Americans, man, they love their luxuries, man. You know, but again, we're coming into a time where everything that the prophets have been saying is truly, it's honestly coming to pass, like right now. People are, you know, starting to see that, right? You best believe, hey, you're going to have a whole bunch of, you know, snitches. You know, you're going to have a whole bunch of, you know, if you will, right, snitches, if you will. You know, you're going to have a whole bunch of, you know, you know, maybe our faces being plastered on these screens, because Esau is being revealed. Again, the Lord will all go into this a little bit later. Esau being revealed at such a high level, right? He's got to cause a distraction. He's got to cause, you know, basically a switcheroo, if you will, man. He's being revealed so much, but see, he's causing all these problems, and then he's going to blame it on somebody, and that's going to be the Israelites, man, right? As we're seeing him do, you know, even now, right? But it's going to get far worse, man, to the point where, again, those who are speaking against his system, right, are going to be having their faces plastered all over the TVs, man, you know, the airwaves and whatnot, you know, the radio waves, TVs, the radio, so on and so forth, man. So prepare your mind for the situation that's coming, man, because it's coming, you know. But that's all I got, man. I just wanted to touch on that, man, ultimately give a warning, right, out to, you know, Israel, right, for those who truly believe in Yahweh Bashim Shai, or, you know, standing stiffly for the name of Yahweh Bashim Shai in these times, man, presenting their bodies a living sacrifice, you know. Stay prepared, man. Stay prayed up, right? Continue to watch, continue to pray, you know, and we almost out of here with that. Lord wills, edifying, Lord will, straight to the point. I want to give all praise, honor, glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachak, Wadash, double honor to the elder apostles, as the bishops of Great Millstone. Till next time I say shalom.